Okay, welcome back to the Forces of Consciousness series. Today we're going to be talking about Mars. Mars is the force of consciousness in us, of our exertion of our self-will, the exertion of our willpower. In our mind, we have our subjectivity, the moon. How we use our moon, how we use what we have in our mind is the force of Mars. So Mars is the force in us of practical and tangible problem solving. It's how we use logic to get over obstacles, to when we're faced with problems in life, how do we assess the problems and then how do we overcome those problems? So Mars has a very logical and a very logical processes attached. It's a strategic logic that we're using every day, all the time. It's very critical to have a good Mars in our chart. And as I began studying Vedic astrology, I was in a way surprised about the things that I learned, not only because of the practical, tangible strategies that we need to use to solve problems in our life, but also there's a spiritual element to Mars that is very interesting, and we're going to talk about on the back end of this, how we use our discipline to grow spiritually. So Mars isn't just an earthly problem solver. There's a very strong self-spiritual element to Mars as well. But first, we're going to talk about the practical ways that we use our Mars in our everyday life. So Mars is, one of the names of Mars is Kuja in Sanskrit, and that means born of the earth. So what is Earth? Earth is a struggle. Earth is a realm that we are constantly dealing with different obstacles that happen in life. Mars is considered a cruel planet. There's 4 cruel planets: the Sun, the Moon when it's waning or getting smaller, Mars, and Saturn. Mars is considered the most cruel. What does cruel really mean? Because in English it can be connotated in a way of very negative and mean-spirited. But cruel is in the sense that Mars is giving us experiences in our life that are difficult, and from those difficult experiences, we grow and develop as people. So the Mars force within us is approaching difficulties and stressful situations and learning how to deal with those stressful situations better, so that those stressful situations, the next time a similar situation comes, it's less stressful. So Mars is about, as we grow through life, as we develop, some of the best ways that we develop are the difficult and the problems that we have. People who don't have a lot of problems aren't growing much as people. We grow the most through stress when we can do that positively. So Mars is developing us through stressful situations. So that's one way that Mars is considered cruel. Another reason Mars is considered cruel is because sometimes solving a problem or sometimes dealing with people, it's more logical to deal with them in a way that is stricter or more stern. Because by dealing, for example, if a child is about to put their hand on a stove, you grab the hand very quickly and you say, don't do that, with strictness, not with gentleness. Because to get the point across to not do that again in the best interest of the person, you have to be stern and strict to show the seriousness of what's going on. So Mars, the force in us, solving a problem, oftentimes requires that we handle the situation with a sternness. And it's critical often that, a boss, no one's going to respect and do the orders of the boss if the boss is always kind. The boss has to oftentimes be logical and strict and deal with the problem in a very direct way. Mars isn't about pleasantries, and Mars isn't about doing cordial and having kind of the formal behavior that we do at a dinner party. Mars is direct and wants to know how to solve a problem right away. And that problem solving is both immediate, takes 5 minutes, takes 5 seconds, but also it's problem solving that can take years. It's tangible things that we're dealing with in life. Saturn, on the other hand, is problems that we can't It's more psychological problems, things that we have to deal with during life that we can't improve upon. We can improve upon, but things that we're going to have to deal with because they're always going to be lacking in some way, and how we deal with the inevitable, the things that we can never really overcome in the long term. And that's when we talk about Saturn, we're going to get into the difference between what Saturn and Mars are. So Mars's problem solving is, like I said, it can be long-term tangible problems. Mars rules the Earth, like I said, not the Earth element, but rules territory. So Mars is defending one's territory, and there's a land connotation with Mars because Mars is a defender of regions. It's the defender of the kingdom. So Mars has a territorial aspect to it. Where do we mark as our territory, and how are we defending and protecting that territory? So I just bought some land, I just bought a farm, and building up that farm is going to take a lot of problem solving. It's going to take a lot of strategic solutions and identifying what needs to get done on the farm. And that's going to take a long time. It's not going to be resolved quickly. And so patience is required in that process. Because if I expect the farm to be up and running and producing food for my loved ones for immediately in a couple months, I'm going to end up being frustrated. You need to be patient with the process that it takes to develop that territory, to develop and solve the problems associated with the land. So a good Mars force in somebody is going to be someone that can deal with problems with patience and understand that that problem won't get solved just because I'm really fired up and upset. Is that problem going to be solved because I'm fired up, or do I have to coldly develop the solutions to the problem? Some problems can get solved quickly, other problems take a long time to resolve, and obstacles. So a person with a difficult Mars in their chart is going to get frustrated easily and angry when they can't resolve a problem quickly, when they're not using strategies in an efficient way to resolve whatever problem is there. They get frustrated and angry, and we can use that anger to motivate us, but someone with a difficult Mars is going to take that frustration and allow it to negatively affect them because they can't solve the problem as soon as they want. So those are the emotional sides of Mars, whether we can have patience or intense frustration, but can we use that frustration as a motivation to solve the problem as best as we can, as efficient as we can. So a big part of Mars is efficiency. If a problem can be resolved in 5 minutes, why would we resolve the problem in 20 minutes? Persons with difficult Mars, say Mars debilitated in Cancer, these people will see that there's a problem. They might not even see it right away, but when they see there's a problem, they're not going to jump into action to resolve it very quickly. They're going to allow that problem to, I'll deal with that in a little while. There's kind of a resistance to springing into action. People with good Marses in their charts, as a career planet for them, will be people that are first responders to emergencies. They can be firefighters, people that, or engineers. Engineers are, they're very logical problem solvers. But people with a good Mars will be able to spring into action when something arises that needs to get resolved quickly. So in that springing into action, there's that efficiency element to it, and being cool under pressure. Even though Mars is the element of fire, someone with a great Mars is going to have that fire, but very cool and even tempered during that process. Being able to not be clouded by emotions during an emergency or during a problem that needs to be resolved with logic. It can be very difficult in emergencies to be unemotional, to stop and see the facts and the elements at play, and to make strong judgments about how those can be used strategically to get over the problem. It's a very, very useful skill in life in general. And the Mars force in us, it has to be used with caution as well, because we can't be looking at life as one giant problem to get resolved. then we're living life in stress. Like I said, Mars develops us through stress. If we're always looking at everything as life as one giant problem, we're not enjoying life at all. We're not using our other planets to take in good things and enjoy life. So Mars has this part of it that needs to be used with caution in a way. Because yes, we're resolving problems all the time. There's no food in the fridge. How do I resolve that? Not by being emotional or thinking about the food. I get up, I use action, and I go to the supermarket and I buy food. That solved my problem. I didn't need to think that deeply about it, but there was very direct strategical things that I could do to solve it. That's a very simple example of Mars, but if Mars is not being used with caution, we can see problems that aren't even there, or we're not being efficient with resolving the problems, or we're seeing too many problems. And we don't want to always be using our Mars. We don't always want to be in the cold, calculating, seeing what needs to get done all the time. It's just going to cause stress for our energetic body in general. Mars is the energy that we have to go out into the world and do things. It's the way we use energy to use our what's in our mind, our consciousness. So as we were talking, the emotions, there's the negative emotions of frustration and anger. If we're not getting what we want, we're not able to resolve stuff with our own self-will. But there's the good side of Mars emotions of being able to use that as fuel, as a fire, to actually be even more deep, have a deeper motivation to get over those humps in life. So we can use that anger and frustration as a positive emotion. There's a reason for that to be there. I really don't want this in my life, and it's just frustrating me so much, it's going to make me want to solve that problem even more. That's a good Mars. And it's not pushing that anger on other people. Because that we have our self-will, we have our willpower. Someone with a Mars that's negatively affected in the chart is going to confuse their willpower with other people's willpower. They can be, when it's interacting with Saturn, it will have this part where they're seeing the problems where they're not problems, or there's this part of Mars where it's the person not minding their own business. They have this force, they want to do stuff, they're putting their action into the world, they have something in their mind and they have the energy to go out and do it. If the Mars is being misused, if that force is being misused, it's going to be trying to resolve other people's problems that they didn't ask to be solved. So we have to always be very careful about Mars in this sense too. Are we seeing problems that aren't there? Are we trying to resolve other people's problems that that aren't being asked to be solved, and then which could even cause other problems? But it's that use of the self-will, understanding what your territory is, understanding what your willpower is, how you can be working in your life to solve the problems that you have, to have the capacity to understand what can be solved, and not looking at other people's lives and saying, oh yeah, well, I'm going to help this person in this way. Because deep down, well, Mars is righteous. It's not just anger and cruelty. It's wanting to resolve things, and that's a super positive thing. And that's one kind of misunderstanding people have about Mars. There's this dignified and wanting to do good aspect of Mars. The Mars force in us wants to even help other people at times, because you see someone having a problem, you want to help that person. That's a good Mars. But there is the risk, you run the risk of causing other problems if that's not in harmony with what those other person and what they want, what their will is saying, what they want to do. We have to be very careful about how we're extending our Mars, how we're exerting our energy, so we're not interfering and messing with other people's wants and messing with other people's actions. Things get entangled fast in that way. And so Mars jumping into action, you don't want to end up being that nosy neighbor that's always looking at the neighbor's house and talking about the problems. Oh yeah, this person, getting in other people's business and trying to resolve other people's problems that no one asked them to resolve. So there's that kind of interesting aspect of the Mars self-will, putting themselves out there too much that it causes new problems. And so Mars is our sight. It's the sense of sight, and that symbolizes what we see in front of us. And that means, what are we seeing in the world, and what are we seeing, and how are we it has to do with what we see happening around us and what we can do to best position ourselves so that what we see is affecting us in the best way. Being able to see far in front that, oh, if I do this, this is going to make these logical cause and effects. If I do this, it's going to cause this, a logical process. If I do this, it's going to make this person feel this way. If I do this, it's going to make that person feel that way. Being able to logically see in front and the potential problems that happen, that's our Mars force, our sight. People who have a bad Mars are seeing things in a skewed way. If their consciousness is right, but they're logically ordering what they're seeing in a skewed way, their actions are then going to be skewed. What the energy that they put into the world are going to have unintended consequences, because their vision, not their creative or interior vision, but their vision of the world around has a malaffected element to it. They're not seeing correctly the logical reality of a situation. So with a good Mars, we want to be able to look at life with a clear perception. And this will get us into the spiritual elements of Mars, how we're perceiving and how we're using the vision we have of the world around us. Are we seeing things clearly? And with that clear vision, we're able to use our action in a clearer way. We're able to put ourselves into the world with being more helpful, being more contributing positively, because we're able to assess something in a very clear-sighted way. So Mars, where Mars is in our chart, is where we're going to be. The house that it's in is where we're going to build our territory of security, the area of life where we're going to feel most secure, and as life goes on, building a security around that area of life. So if it's in the 9th house, we're going to build security around our purpose in life. We're going to build security and our sense of being protected, our kingdom being protected in what we know on a higher level, our ability, our capacity to have higher levels of knowledge. We're going to work at building that, but also protecting that. That's something we're going to feel secure about. If it's in our 10th house, we're going to be building and protecting our actions, our career, for example, and how we're going to feel the most secure when we're dealing with those, with our actions in our career, the things that we do in the world. If Mars is in the 7th house, we can be very protective about our partner, protective about our place in the public. So Mars is creating security wherever it's placed in our chart, and defending that in a healthy or unhealthy way. And as we get older, we begin realizing that security isn't just policing ourself or policing other people. Security is a state of mind. It's a state of consciousness. So as we're growing and developing our Mars, we develop a security and a sense of being protected and safeness as just a state of being. It's not necessarily a state of action and solving problems. It's a state of knowing that things are going to be okay because I have the capacity to resolve problems as they arise. In my consciousness, I know if the problem comes up, I have the ability to deal with that problem. Being secure in that very singular way in yourself. So as we get older, we develop deeper discipline about our willpower, how we use our force of Mars, how we use our will, but also our won't power. When understanding when not to do something is just as important to understand when to do something. This is a healthy Mars growing in the spiritual sense. So people that are training themselves through practice and through exertion of energy, people that are training, Mars is about training and getting better. Our ability to know when to do something and when not to do something. So there's a discipline is a very great word to describe Mars, because we're really developing that through our life. When is it not right to do this? Because it's going to create whatever negative effect. So it's better that I don't. And that can be about our bodies as well. Creating greater discipline for controlling our passions. What we were talking about with Mars as a force of energy, there's a lot of quick response and there's a lot of fire. Mars is so much fire. And fire is passion. Fire is wanting to exert the energy that you have inside of you. But passion in and of itself isn't good or bad, but passion causes deeper levels of being in the state of passion. So by developing the spiritual element of Mars, we're developing our character in the sense that we're able to control our passions, able to control the way that we exert energy and the way that we're interacting with the struggles in the world, and making less the amount of deep passion that we have. Being in the state of passion causes not just frustration, but it causes deeper desires and wants, wanting something. And with the case of Mars, it's wanting things to be safe, secure, problems not to arise. But as we get older, by being able to control that desire element, being able to control our passions, we're able to see that we need less than we think we need. We don't have, there are things that we don't have in life, and by pushing our will out there isn't necessarily going to give us those things, because the will doesn't solve everything. Having just whatever I want to do, I'm going to do it because I have this power of will. That's a Mars that's totally it's a skewed Mars, thinking that anything can be done with just the use of one's will. And it's a very it's out of control passion at the baseline of it. People that say do whatever you want, and that's what the rule of life is. Do what thou wilt. Use your will. The people who have a very strong will, they can use that will in so many different ways. If they use that will, that I'm going to do whatever I want, I don't care what happens to other people. This is someone with a very strong Mars, but an extremely dangerous Mars, because that will is going to be messing with the wills of other people. And I hope that makes sense, because there are a lot, like for example, even what I think of sometimes is like Harry Potter or magic. And do what thou wilt comes from Aleister Crowley, a magician. But Harry Potter and magic, I was super into it as a kid, and I loved the books. I read them all, and I was really into it. But I was raised in a Catholic Christian context, and the book, even though I was in the newspaper for loving the book so much, I won a contest for being the biggest fan and everything, my school banned the books of Harry Potter. And I was like, wow, I mean, I'm still going to read them at home, but why would the school ban the books? And it made me think, and not till many years later, I understand the reason why they banned them. And it's not because I agree or disagree with why the school banned, but I realized later that the reason Christians don't agree with magic, or if you just take it beyond the Christian perspective, what is magic? It's putting your will onto other people, regardless if they want to be interacting with that will or not. If I do a spell, I'm putting it's pure willpower. And that is extremely dangerous. Even if you want to do good for those people, you're violating those other person's ability to resolve their own or have their own decisions about what they want to do in life. So not to stray too far, but this is Mars energy. It's the use of the willpower. Are we trying to dominate our world around us by using our will? Or do we have the discipline to understand that we need to control what we want, control our passions, and control the fire in us to understand when it's proper to use this Mars energy, when it's the most proper to use it, when problem solving is going to resolve the problem, then we can go back to not having to use our Mars. It's having that discernment to know what is a problem, what isn't a problem. Am I seeing problems correctly, or am I not? And in the Vedas, one of the gods of war, a god of war is Kartikeya, and that's a son of Brahma. There are many stories about this deity, god of war. It's a 7-day-old child. That's a very strange god of war. You would think a god of war has been in 1,000 wars and has done battle with everybody you can imagine, and they're this grizzled, scarred, cut up, strong individual. It's a 7-day-old child. And so it's one of those Vedic stories that really makes you think deeply about how does that work? It's because a child's and it's a divine being, so it's not just a child that we imagine today, like the humans of today. It's a divine being, but it's only a 7-day-old child. Why is it a 7-day-old child? Children have pure perception. Children have a pure sense of being able to see between right and wrong, being able to see between what should I and shouldn't I do. A divine child would have that. Children need to be trained on how to do that. But in the broader sense, children have a pure ability to see the world. And this god of war had the ability to defeat the demons because he could see directly what the problems were and how to solve those problems as quickly as possible. So it's a very interesting, but in a deeper sense, the Mars force in us, it's that perception of problems. And it's our ability to have a pure perception and not be clouded by frustration and be clouded by our passions and clouded by our needs and wants that we believe we need, and using our subjectivity to, I want this and that, having a pure perception of seeing what logically makes sense in our life. And so as we develop our Mars force within us, we want to reduce the amount of passion we have for wanting to exert our energy and controlling our energy, controlling the life force in us to use it in the most beneficial and positive ways. And that's controlling our Mars energy, our Mars force within us in the best possible way. Because as we develop that, we're spiritually growing. And with the discipline that we can develop with controlling our Mars force, we develop spiritually. Our character improves. It's not just our consciousness that is improving, but how we exert our consciousness. And that's what our character is, what we believe should or shouldn't happen according to our belief systems, and then putting that into action. That's what our Mars force is all about. Developing that logical sense that's not being skewed by passions. So fighting the senses. Mars is a fighter. Mars is always trying to fight through a problem. Spiritually, that means fighting through our sense perceptions, fighting through what we are perceiving to get at the purest possible perception, and getting at the purest perception of divinity that we can possibly get at in this life, and become purer and purer. So once our the purer our consciousness is, the purer our character will be, the purer our actions will be in how we exert ourselves in the world. So that's the spiritual side of Mars, is how to develop a purity of perception and a purity of understanding the logic around us, how logic is working, how we need to use our action. And when we are strategizing effectively, we're able to have our character improves in an all-around sense. We can control ourselves. So Mars is a really fascinating planet because there are many levels to it, and we're using Mars day in and day out, long-term, short-term, but it's far deeper than just having an energy in us. There's a disciplinary element of that force within us that we're developing through our lives. And so I really enjoyed learning about Mars because it was, like all of the planets, they're divine beings, and there's a pure element to them that's pure spiritual. And getting at that pure spiritual use of our willpower is a very incredible thing to have in our life. Being able to strategize effectively, efficiently, so that it benefits us, but it's also beneficial to other people, and respecting the efforts and the self power of other people. We have to have all of these working together when we're using our Mars. And I hope that brought some clarity to what this force in us is doing. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. And the next video is going to be about the fourth planet, Mercury.